All right, I have the honor right now of introducing our next speaker, Ed Smyth, who's the supervisor in Huntington. So let's get started. Edmund J. Smyth, Chapter 1. I'm only kidding. Before we get started in introducing Ed Smyth, I just want to mention where Huntington is and what kind of town Huntington is. For those of you who don't know, Huntington is located in Suffolk County, the northwestern part of Suffolk County. It's a town made up of 203,000 people. It's a very diverse town. Not only that, there is our budget in the town of Huntington for this year coming up is $210 million. So it's really like a mini city. Ed Smyth was elected supervisor this past November. And a little background, Ed was born and raised in Huntington. His parents immigrated, his father from Ireland and his mother from Scotland. And he grew up and got married. He lives in Huntington with his wife, Coriander, and his 4 children. He went to the local high school in Huntington. He went to Widener College, but before he went to Widener College, 2 days after he graduated from high school, he enlisted in the Marines and spent 6 years in the Marines. And when he left after those 6 years, he was a staff sergeant. And after leaving the Marines, he went to Widener College, got his degree in history, and then finally went to law school at New York Law School. And then after he graduated from law school, he opened up a nice little practice on Main Street. And for the last 25 years, he's been practicing law. Now, 4 years ago, he decided that he was going to run for the town council in Huntington, and he did a great job campaigning, and he won. And the year that he won, 4 years ago, the council in Huntington had been controlled by the Democratic Party for 20 years. But the year Ed ran for council, the Republicans took over 4 years ago, and they had a 3-2 board. Now his term ended this year, and he said, you know what? I'm going to run for supervisor. And he did a great job running for supervisor this past November, and he won, and not only based on his tireless campaigning, and he had a great organization behind him, they picked up another seat in the Huntington Town Council. So now Huntington is a 4-1 Republican conservative majority. Now, I can't talk about Huntington without saying a couple of words about Suffolk County. Suffolk County was controlled by the Democrats in our county legislature for 16 years. And Ed Smyth, running with his organization and running in conjunction with our county conservative chairman, Mike Torres, we flipped 2 seats in the town of Huntington. So now, for the first time in 16 years, Suffolk County has an 11-7 Republican conservative majority. And we're looking forward for what that's going to show. And not only that, but we got an elected conservative member of that Suffolk County legislature through many of the efforts of Ed Smyth. And not only Ed worked in conjunction with Ray Tierney, Suffolk County had, for the last 20 years, we had a succession of Democratic DAs, and Ray Tierney won campaigning with Ed Smyth nonstop. It was great to see. It was terrific. Ed was crucial in getting term limits passed in the town as a member of the town board, and he also pushed for infrastructure. He really worked on the infrastructure, working on the roads in the town. One thing that I liked about Ed when he ran, and that's why I was impressed by him running, is his motto to everybody was, if you want your infrastructure, if you want your roads repaired, if you want all the branches of government, town government, to work efficiently, vote for me. If you want theatrics and you want drama, don't vote for me. I'm not your man. And that was a great thing that he did. At this time, I'm proud to introduce the supervisor of the town of Huntington, my friend, Ed Smyth.
Thank you, everybody. It's a privilege to be here. I'm going to plagiarize a joke that I heard 2 weeks ago. I've said it several times already, from Bruce Blakeman, the new county executive of Nassau County, who had to speak, and he was pretty far down on the agenda of speakers, and he said he felt like Liz Taylor's third husband on their wedding night. He said, "I know what I'm supposed to do, I just don't know if I can make it interesting for you." I feel the same way. I want to thank Mr. Cassar. Mike Torres, who I don't think is here today. He's our Suffolk County chairman. He's under 3 feet of snow out on the east end of Long Island. And Frank, thank you very much for the introduction. I appreciate it. I joined the Marine Corps Reserve. That's it. But other than that, it's all good. But I want to thank you for this opportunity. It really is a special opportunity to speak to the state convention. I was asked to speak on governing as a conservative, and I'll be happy to do that. I just want to let you know that there are, I'll mention it when I get to it, that this is the boring part of the speech, but it is relevant. But understand one thing, I was initially asked to speak about unfunded mandates at the town level. So, if you think this gets boring, just think what it could have been. So you know, governing as a conservative, if I stuck to that topic exclusively, it would be a very short speech. And the reason why is because governing as a conservative is very simple. And I try to do it, and it's on my campaign literature. It's very simple. Stick to the principles of limited, transparent, and accountable government. If you do that, you're 99% of the way home. The 1% is watch your back. Because when you are a conservative or a Republican in this state, you have a target on you. There is no question about that. The deep state is real at every level. People will, you'll put out a policy, it will be ignored many times at the bureaucracy level. Being an outspoken conservative has never been easier in New York, but I didn't say it was easy. It's never been easier. The wind is at our backs right now. So indulge me for a minute. I'm going to go into a little bit of history about campaigning and about where I come from on Long Island, and it's relevant to the whole state, and it's something as a lesson that we can carry forward. But I will tell you that when I campaign, and Frank mentioned it, I love campaigning. I will tell you flat out, I don't make any apologies for it. I love it. I love going out there. I love bare knuckle politics. It's in my blood. I can't get enough of it. It's, you know, I like to say I stay within the lines, but I use every inch of the playing field. And I've had some opponents who didn't think that was fair, but I don't care. So, right now, we're enjoying what I think is a huge shift in politics in New York State. But indulge me and let me go back 25 years to begin. When I came back from law school to Huntington, the town I grew up in 1997, I had just graduated from law school, met my wife. At that time, Huntington had a Republican conservative town board. The New York State Senate was solidly Republican. Suffolk County Legislature was controlled by conservative Republicans. The district attorney was a conservative Republican. The town and county clerks were both conservative Republicans. The Suffolk County executive was a conservative Republican. We had 2 members of Congress representing Long Island that were both conservative Republicans. We had a United States Senator representing New York, Al D'Amato, a Republican. Our county sheriff was a Republican, conservative Republican. The governor of the state was a Republican. The mayor of the city of New York was a Republican 25 years ago, and then we went into the desert. We were adrift. Not, it wasn't one dramatic event that caused this. It was a mindset, I think, that we became accepting of mediocrity. We didn't fight for every election. The one thing that Democrats do that we don't is they fight every election. I don't care if it is a water commission district commissioner, if it's a fire district commissioner, they fight it like it is the presidential race. Every election matters. We lost that 25 years ago, and we started letting it drift. Losing elections had no consequence. Winning elections had no reward. Complacency took hold. We accepted dysfunctional government. We didn't just accept it, we started expecting it. Good enough for government work. That had to stop. We went into the desert for 25 years, but we're back now. Not all the way. We are rebounding. We've taken back the Suffolk County Legislature, I'm very happy to say. We went into the race in November hoping to bring back 1 seat. That's all we needed. We needed 1 seat to get the majority in Suffolk County. We picked up 4. Took back the Huntington Town Board. I'm going to spike the football here. Okay. We took back the Huntington Town Board. I was in a race. It was a 3-way race. I had a Democrat opponent, but I also had a Republican who sat next to me on the town council. And he ran as a third-party candidate because he was passed over and he didn't like it. I kicked his ass. And I have to thank one person for that. Joe Biden. It's incredible. By the way, beat the Democrat by 14 percentage points. Like I said, I spiked the football a little bit. But Joe Biden, I mean, it's stunning to think how somebody could be so unpopular after 1 year in office. I mean, you do get a honeymoon period. Thankfully, I'm still in it. We've gotten quite a few snowstorms. We're working, digging our way out. You get a honeymoon in this job. Okay. It's stunning how Joe Biden screwed up everything he touched. Everything. I mean, it's hard to point to a win for that man as president. But I have to give him a lot of credit because come November, this past November, that's all people were talking about. But when you don't govern as a conservative, if you don't govern from the right, that's what happens. I mean, what we do, I truly believe that what we do is when we govern from the right, we're doing it correctly. And that's the way to govern, that's what works. The Democrats in the state have alienated their base. And this is important for this upcoming year. They have alienated their base. My wife is a Democrat.
Mixed marriage.
Yeah. But I will tell you, she doesn't recognize the Democrat Party today. It is not the party of John F. Kennedy. Bill Clinton couldn't win a primary today. They have alienated their base, whether it's labor unions, minorities, college-educated suburban women. My wife, and also, if you look at the former Nassau County Executive Laura Curran, who was once the darling of the state Democrat Party, she got tossed out of office by Bruce Blakeman. And now she looks poised to leave the Democrat Party. She was making all sorts of noise about leaving the Democrat Party. This woman was the standard bearer, college-educated, suburban woman, county executive of one of the biggest counties in the state, and she's ready to leave the Democrat Party. She didn't govern from the right, for sure. But as Ronald Reagan said, he was a staunch Democrat for a long time, most of his life, and he famously said, "I never left the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party left me." That's what's going on a wide scale across the state. I'm startled. I was startled by how many people came up to me during the campaign and still come up to me and say, "I have never voted for a Republican or conservative in my life except you." Mm-hmm. I never would have ever thought I would vote for a Republican, but I did for you and your slate. They went right across the board. It is stunning. It's flattering to listen to. It's stunning to hear, because there are some people that are, you would never believe it, but they are receptive to our message. So don't lose sight of that. in the upcoming campaign. So here comes the boring part, okay? Fair warning, okay? So it could be unfunded mandates, but instead you get the history of Pennsylvania in 1930, which I am a student of history, political history in particular, and I looked at New York today. It's very similar to Pennsylvania in the 1930s, except the politics are reversed. In the 1930s, Pennsylvania was staunchly Republican. The thought of electing a Democrat to all but the most local office was unheard of. Electing a Democrat to a statewide office in Pennsylvania in the 1930s was laughable. However, in 1932, Allegheny County, which surrounds Pittsburgh, went to the Democrats. Bit of a shockwave. In 1933, Pittsburgh elected a Democratic mayor. In 1934, the Keystone State elected its first U.S. Senator and Democrat governor since the 1870s. In 1936, Franklin Delano Roosevelt carried the state to win the presidency. How did that happen? How did Pennsylvania begin the 1930s with a stranglehold, a conservative stranglehold on Pennsylvania, and lose it in 6 short years? Well, it sounds familiar to what's going on with Democrats in New York today. Back then, a very vocal but small group hijacked their political narrative in Pennsylvania under the banner of public health and the greater good and save the children. They banned alcohol. It was the Republicans that pushed for prohibition. Despite it being wildly unpopular and routinely ignored, Republicans, particularly in Pennsylvania, stuck with it, ignoring their base. They forged on. The Republicans in Pennsylvania ignored the average citizen who went to work every day in coal mines and steel mills, in the oil fields out west. They gravitated to the owners. They gravitated to the owners of those oil fields and steel mills, like Andrew Carnegie and Andrew Mellon, the Rockefeller fortune in oil, the coal and coke fortunes of Henry Clay Frick, and railroad fortune of Commodore Vanderbilt. That's where the party went, and they forgot the base. The infighting in the Republican Party in Pennsylvania at this time was legendary. It would be unusual if a party convention didn't end in a fist fight. It was commonplace for gunfights to take place at these conventions. Pennsylvania in the 1930s, very similar to what you see in the Democrat Party today in New York. All of these factors exist today. Today's governing Democrats are totally detached from their base. Today, the Democrat Party ignores the needs of the average citizen. They fawn over Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, George Soros, Warren Buffett, and an endless list of hedge fund billionaires, or at least their money. The union leadership is completely divorced from its members in terms of politics. They'll still fight for a strong contract, but when it comes to politics, the rank and file do not listen to the leadership. And in fact, when I was out campaigning, I had my walk list, but I would actively look for stickers or any other indication, whether it's a trade van in the driveway, whether it's a pickup truck with a ladder rack, not some souped up pickup truck for show, but an actual working truck or a plumber's van or anything like that that indicated that that's a labor union member. I would actively go seeking them, knock on their door, even if they weren't on my target list. And invariably, they were conservative Republicans. They weren't just conservative, they were Trump Republicans. Invariably. There's a total disconnect between union leadership and its rank and file. Whether they know it or not, I don't care. School administrators. How many times do they have to outrage soccer moms, hockey dads with their absurd curriculum, whether it's Common Core, with their science-free mask mandates and policies, and the classroom teachers, most of whom are very liberal, they're very liberal, are left scratching their heads wondering what happened to their profession. But the Democrat Party continues to govern from the left. They push this failed criminal justice reform bill, which is a joke. It is destroying effective police work throughout the state. It's making more and more ordinarily quiet and safe neighborhoods violent. I'm sad to report the town of Huntington last year had 3 drive-by shootings. And I don't know, Frank, if you heard this, but last week we had our first armed carjacking in the town. That's a first. But again, criminal justice reform. citizens out there are not buying this. Stick on that message. If the prior speaker talked about it, that is one of the key issues that's going to carry into this coming November. On the national level, Joe Biden killed the Keystone Pipeline his first week in office, went to war with the oil industry, not the Taliban. Gas prices shot up, $3 per gallon, have never looked back. The far left is thrilled by this. But the average person, as was said, every time they go to the gas pump and spend $50, $75, or $100 to fill up their car, okay, they're losing, the Democrats are losing that vote right there. The list of failures goes on. Literally everything the Democrats have touched has turned to garbage. So what is it like to run and govern as a Republican conservative? In a word, it's fantastic. It really is. The wind is at our back. Okay, but let's not get too far over our skis. I will tell you that I have a Democrat colleague on the Huntington Town Board. In her office, there is a framed newspaper front page with her smiling face on the front of it. It says, "Blue Wave," in big bold letters. That newspaper was 2 years ago. That's how quick it turns. So political waves wash ashore, but they go out as quickly as they come in. So this feel-good moment can pass in an instant if we don't deliver. So everything I've said, people out there see what's happening. It's not lost on anybody. You don't have to be a political insider to see what's happening. People see that gas prices have gone skyrocketing. They see that bacon is $10 a pound. And I heard recently there's a shortage of cream cheese. Now, do I care about cream cheese all that much? Not really. Except when it grabs my attention like that, to say there's a shortage of cream cheese. That speaks volumes about what's going on around the country, about supply chain issues, about day-to-day issues. When it's even, if anybody ever told me 3 years ago, 4 years ago, that it would be even possible to have a shortage of cream cheese, I would have laughed at them, but here we are. Cream cheese. It's a bellwether. Who knew? So, these are all a result of Democrat policies. They didn't govern from the right. I will tell you that the last 5 years has been exhausting in politics. It's been exhausting for me as a candidate, for me as an elected official. I will tell you it's been exhausting for voters. And as Frank mentioned, I sent out an intro letter when I started my campaign, and I sent out a closing letter right before Election Day to close the campaign. And we had all the fun and excitement in between, but I thought it was important to send out a mission statement letter before and after. And the opening line of it was, "If you're looking for entertainment from your local government, I'm not your guy." And I think that message was important coming off of the last 5 years, and because voters don't want crazy. They don't want bombast. They don't want sweeping social changes. They want services. They want to feel like they're getting their money's worth out of their tax dollars. I'm boring. I don't mind saying it. I'm a boring town supervisor. I was a boring town councilman. Boring is good. I don't want excitement. I think voters today, and again, as you're selecting candidates going forward, I think the voters today are expecting competence from their executives and thoughtful policymakers from their legislators. The hottest political topics today when you're out there talking is not Donald Trump, it's not Black Lives Matter, it's not Joe Biden, it's not the January 6th protest or whatever the adjective they want to put on that. It's sewers, at least on Long Island it is. It's sewers, it's infrastructure. It's boring stuff. But sewers on Long Island are everything. And we just had a tour of our sewage treatment plant, which I saw for the first time. Very exciting. It's disgusting, but it was excellent. Imagine the Willy Wonka chocolate factory, the bubbling cauldron. Yeah, exactly. Solid waste digester tank. That's exactly what you think it is. Cost us $800,000 last year, but it's necessary. So my new campaign slogan is going to be "Mom, Apple Pie, and Sewage." Test that one out, see how it works. But, so what you campaign on it has to be how you govern. You train like you fight like you train. So the same thing in politics. You govern how you campaign, and you campaign on how you're going to govern. And I can tell you that it's been exciting, but one of the things that I can tell you about campaigning last year was that our walk list was targeted towards soft Democrats, soft Republicans, blanks, and independents. And soft meaning they didn't always turn out. They'd show up on election year, for president, maybe for midterms, but never on the double off year elections. I can tell you that from mid-June through election day, I had fewer than 10 negative interactions at the front door. I knocked on thousands of doors. I can't even remember. I mean, I can remember 3 actual. I'm being generous and saying less than 10. It got so unnerving that I asked our political consultant to go back and check the filters that he used in the database to see, is this accurate? These cannot possibly be the swing voters and do such a wide canvass of the voters and come up with only 10 people, fewer than 10, that would have a negative interaction. Most people are generally polite, even if they're not going to vote for you. They'll be polite at the front door. But it has to be expected you're going to get some really negative reaction, particularly in this hyper-partisan atmosphere that we have. It didn't exist. I asked him to go back and check the filters that he used. He came back and said, no, that's it. It's accurate. He was right. As a side note, and this is off script, Subarus. We all profile. Everybody's been campaigning, right? You've all been out walking door to door. And you start profiling houses, people, their cars, their boats. You come up with just instinctively who's inside that house based on what's in the driveway, what's in the yard. I would have thought, confession, that if somebody drives a Subaru, they're not voting for a conservative Republican. Dead wrong. Dead wrong. The number of Subarus on our walk list, and we didn't do anything with Subarus, but the number of Subarus in the driveway became a running joke with us. We would knock on 3, 4, one time we did 5 houses in a row, there was a Subaru in every driveway. There were a couple houses we went to that had 2 Subarus in the driveway. I don't know why. I don't know the science behind it. I'm just throwing it out there. So don't, if you see a house with a Subaru in the driveway, hey, how you doing? If you're a Subaru dealer, call me. I got a great list of potential clients for you. But just an aside. So double check, swing voters, here we go. All right. So anyway, it carries into how we govern, and that is to deliver services without drama. So to be clear, I'm not advocating that we move to the mushy middle, and this is important, that we don't move to the mushy middle. I think that's not it at all. What we need to do this year is demonstrate to the mushy middle, to the Subaru drivers, that they have come to us, that we're not trying to impose on them. People are not going to receive that message. But like Ronald Reagan, who never left the Democrat Party, the party left him, we need to demonstrate to the mushy middle of the soft Republicans, soft Democrats, the independents and blanks, that they have migrated to us. Remind them of what the far left did, what it looked like during the quarantines of 2020, and how frightening it was to watch government start taking big bites out of your life on almost a regular basis. Remind them of what it's like now, or at least a few months ago, but still, how crazy it is to wake up and read a headline that you never thought would be possible to read, but yet we're reading it. The middle is coming to us. We don't have to fight it, we don't have to drag them. We just have to bring them to us. So now is the time to redouble our efforts in campaigning. If you are considering being a candidate, raise your hand. Don't be shy. The water's fine. Get involved in a campaign, please. I can't tell you. My campaign manager and now my chief of staff, Michelle McCarthy. Thank you, Frank, for sending her over. She's a conservative. I could not have won without her. And if you can't be the candidate, be Michelle McCarthy. Show up every day. And it was just be organized, have the walk list ready, hand it on the way out the door, and then she went home. She didn't have to campaign, but it was organized, and it was everything for the candidate to have that, somebody who knew what they were doing, has been in politics a long time, who was able to stay organized and get that walk list and the material ready to go for the candidate. If that's what you can do, great. If you write checks, that's wonderful too, but money doesn't vote. It helps, but money doesn't vote. If you can get people out, that's key. So I'll finish with this. No matter how far-fetched or no matter how much of a long shot a race looks like this year, anything's possible this year. And I mean that. I think we will take back the state Senate. I think the governor's office is very winnable. I get criticized for saying this, but I think even the assembly is possibly in play. It's in shouting distance. I see some eyebrows going up. Anything is possible. Remember, in Pennsylvania in 1930, you make enough mistakes in this game, enough rocks in the canoe, you're done. And right now, I think the Democrats have, I almost said it, the Democrats have screwed up everything they have touched. And it's not lost on the voters out there. Even Democrats, it's not lost on them. The level of incompetence in government is startling. So I'll finish. We must remain united, unified, and unapologetic in our conservative message of limited, transparent, and accountable government and sewers, and we'll win. Thank you.